Welcome to another episode of Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise Retirement Podcast, where certified financial planner Lauren Sherman shares thoughts on having a healthy mind, body, and spirit, an abundance of wealth inside portfolios and out, and lessons learned from clients and mentors over the years.
Welcome back for another Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise Retirement. As always, I am your host, Lauren Sherman, and today we will be wrapping up our conversation with Reed Rinderknecht. If you'd like to get to know a little bit more about Reed, check out our conversation in part 1. With that said, today, Reed and I talk about the financial firm he is with called Foster Group right here in West Des Moines, Iowa. Reed is one of Foster Group's senior lead advisors and the most tenured of the whole group. He is both a certified financial planner and holds the Kingdom Advisors designation as well, so we will talk about that more shortly. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation with Reed Rinderknecht. All right, well, we will get started here. So once again, our guest for today is Reed Rinderknecht of Foster Group here in West Des Moines, Iowa. Reed is a certified financial planner, a Kingdom Advisor, and one of the senior lead advisors at his firm. And last time, Reed, you let me know that the senior lead advisor doesn't mean you're the oldest one of the firm, right?
That's right. Yep. Not quite the oldest yet.
And in part 1, we got to know Reed as we talked about his football days of playing for the Hawkeyes, how he's competed over 80 triathlons, and we talked a little bit about his love of flying. So moving into part 2 here today, we're going to change the focus to the firm that Reed is with and who they best serve. So Reed, thanks again for setting aside some time and joining us for part 2 here.
Yeah, no, you bet. Thanks for having me, Lauren. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, to start off the conversation, I understand Foster Groups came about way back in 1989, and then they had a name change. So technically now it's been Foster Group since 2001. So there's a rich history there. But with that said, what is your history with Foster Group and how did you come to work there?
Yeah, no, that's right. At 89, Jerry Foster was just looking for a different way to do things than currently was happening. You know, Des Moines is blessed with a lot of banks and brokerage firms and insurance companies that are advisors and some really good people, you know, in each one of those industries or each one of those, ways to do it. But he was really looking for, providing a service, charging a fee like a lot of other professionals do, whether that's the medical profession or law firms or what have you. And so, but it really wasn't being done at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were either the first or, one of the very first to go fee only and start just charging a fee, providing a service. And then, gosh, about 7 years after that, Jerry and I met. I was working for another firm in town, and we'd met through a mutual friend. And he said, "Hey, I'm looking to do some other things that he was interested in, which was doing some more men's ministry stuff, and then also he was speaking a lot on various topics with family life, marriage conferences, and some other things. And so he was looking for someone to do a lot of the marketing and business development, and then and also another advisor. And so I tell people I've been in the right place at the right time a lot in life, and that was definitely one of them. I probably didn't deserve that shot right then to join such a great group, and but fortunately I did, and did a lot of the business development and marketing my first 10 years, and then really switched over to a majority of my work is with our individual wealth management clients, and then mentoring the other advisors and associate advisors is, one of the things I really, really enjoy now that I have a little more gray hair.
Sure. I'm thinking back to sometimes even right now when you have a very transparent fee, when it's a flat fee or a fee only, the fee's kind of right there in the client's face, so to speak, because it's transparent. So even sometimes now we have the challenge of you ask someone how much their fee is and they either maybe don't know or sometimes they don't really think there is a fee. I imagine you ran into that even more so back when you guys started.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the transparency on fee disclosure was not very good, years ago.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I think our industry's made a lot of progress there with, just having management agreements and full disclosure on that stuff for most folks. But I still, any potential client that comes in and maybe they're either with another advisor or a brokerage firm or insurance company, I'm like, hey, do you know what you're paying? And I would say 80% don't. They still don't
Right.
know what they're paying currently. And so that's one of the things we definitely like to dig in and just, talk about, hey, this is what you're paying now. This is what we charge. Here's the differences in service model. Um, and so just to really educate and inform, them so they can make a good decision. Because, you know, you and I have two different models. Our clients probably look the same in a lot of ways, but different in some ways. And, that's okay. We need a couple different ways to
Right.
fit the different clients. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I used to say that 80% of people would come in and not know what they were paying in a fee, and the other 20% knew, but they were wrong. Because, so often the people
Yeah.
would say what they thought it was, and it turned out it was something different. But
Very true. Yeah.
um, so from its humble beginnings with Foster Group, do you know roughly how many advisors you guys have now at Foster Group?
Yeah. So I think we're around 25 lead advisors, maybe 30 CFPs. And so some of those associates are CFPs, but not yet, full lead advisors. And gosh, when I started, I think there was four of us. So,
Okay,
um, you know, grown quite a bit over the last 27 years. And, we tend to try to just grow organically and, like probably very similar to your practice. Like most of our new clients come from a existing client referring us
sure.
to a friend or someone that's asked them, where they're getting their advice from.
Right. Sounds like a good process where people, an advisor doesn't have to jump right into the fire right out of the gate, but you have a process where they can, that's valuable that there's so many years of experience that they can learn from before they have to, be kind of the lead advisor, so to speak.
Yeah, and there's some really good programs out there. Like Iowa State's got a financial planning program now that's very, very good. And so, a lot of these young professionals are coming out with, like, my daughter has her CFP coursework done. She interned with us 2 years. She's got way more experience than I had, when I started in the
Right.
industry already at 20, at 22. And so, um, we then take them on a journey of, starting out usually in client service. So they're getting an idea of like how money moves and paperwork and, very foundational for processes and systems. And we found that foundation has been really, really helpful as they go from there to an associate advisor to eventually an advisor. It's almost like going to med school and then
Yeah.
residency and then a fellowship.
I imagine because of that process, you guys have probably a lot less turnover too. The advisors that are there are going to stick around, I bet.
Yeah, we've been super fortunate to, to keep, gosh, almost all of our key people. I think part of that's, just our culture is really good. Um, we also, we invest in those employees like they've invested in us. And, that turnover has been super low. And I think, as Lauren, like clients like to call up and, talk to the same person that they've talked to before. They
Sure.
don't like turnover, right? Like they don't like, oh, either my advisor switched firms 3 times or, you know, my person is gone and I don't know anybody else. Like clients, that's really disruptive for clients. And, you know, we've we've known that and realized like, hey, what we can do is treat our people really well and give them a great place to work and good opportunity. And fortunately, it's paid off for us.
Right. We've mentioned CFP a couple of times, and then I mentioned that in your intro that you have the CFP and you hold the CKA, the Certified Kingdom Advisor designation. Do you want to give kind of a high level overview of what those mean? Because I think a lot of people from the outside looking in, they see all of these letters behind a person's name, and you're not quite sure what to think.
Yeah, we actually have a card that has all our designations on, that we give to clients so that they can kind of read about it. But
Oh, that
uh,
explains each one out.
yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. So, the designation of our industry, the Certified Financial Planner designation, CFP. One of my partners used to say that's like the minimum requirement, to get into the industry and start to be legitimate. He thinks, which is, I think, pretty true most of the time. That going through those, what, 6 modules now, I think, and sitting for a comprehensive final, it's a year and a half, 2 year investment, maybe a little bit longer for some folks, that shows, hey, I'm serious about the industry. And there's a standard of care that we all follow, um, that's also, I think, really good for the client. And I think that's, again, I think that's it's like the CPA of our industry, right? So that's
Sure.
kind of that minimum requirement that says, hey, I'm a dedicated professional in this space. We've got 7 or 8 AIFs, accredited investment fiduciaries. So it's, kind of that fiduciary on the investment side. I think we've got 6 CKAs, Certified Kingdom Advisor, and that's essentially the Christian designation for being a financial advisor, that you're going to adhere to some of those biblical principles in terms of how you give advice, which to us really fits into just very sound financial advice as
Sure.
well. Um, and then I think we have 4 or 5 CPAs, so accounting,
Okay.
you know, professional designation there. We don't currently do tax work for clients. Something we've talked about, quite a bit over the years. Some firms are doing that now. We like having that separation with, you know, attorneys and accountants, that, we make up a team with them and don't employ them. We think that's a nice kind of arm's length check and balance there.
Sure.
And we've got great relationships with those folks in town and around the Midwest and country. Um, I'd say the other ones that I think are kind of important is, we got our 2 female lead advisors, senior lead advisors, are both have their law degree and their
Mm.
CFP. And that background has been extremely helpful. I'd love it if all our lead advisors had a little bit of that legal background as well as the
Yeah, that's
CFP.
interesting.
It's
Was that intentional, or was that a career change that they came over with that?
So both of them, I think, started out more in like the trust and estates world, and then
Hmm.
like the financial planning world too. So then they both went to the CFP and got that designation and made a transition. I think they both started out in like trust departments and kind of the banking world, and then got into wealth management. And we were just fortunate
Okay.
to uh, to get a hold of them and
Sure.
lure them into the foster group family. And they're fantastic. We got one in Omaha and one back here. So,
Okay.
and then I think we have, gosh, maybe 8 MBAs, or folks with their masters. And I think all that, I think designations are important. I think it shows that you're committed to the space. But obviously, like, much like a physician that has shown that they've made it through med school and residency and maybe a fellowship, like, the client or the patient only cares, right, like how well you treat them and what kind of service they get. And so we think
Right.
education is super important, but that's just one of the pieces of really taking care of the client.
Right. Right. You mentioned Omaha. Is it just the 2 locations then that Foster is at?
It is, yep, just the
Okay.
2 offices right now. I think we have clients in 43 states though,
Okay.
currently. And Zoom is, one thing nice about COVID is it's made everybody very comfortable with Zoom, and
Yeah.
and so that's actually grown since to 2020. I think we went from 36 states to 43 states, because of Zoom making it so easy.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to joke that pre-COVID, we were already doing a lot virtual at our office, and we had a Zoom tutorial on our website, which seems kind of silly looking back on it now, but at the time, a lot of people were struggling with how that works. So that just
That's a good
accelerated
idea.
everybody's online virtual skills, I guess. Um,
Yeah.
but as a financial planner and having all of these skills within the office, you guys obviously could work with probably just about anybody that walks into your office. But if I were to ask you who would be kind of the model client, or that you really feel you're speaking the same language to that person, if that person or couple walked into your office, what would they look like as far as maybe income, assets, geography, whatever else traits that you might want to share?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. Over most probably 20 of our first 30 years, we were pretty much bread and butter wealth management. 1 to 10 million in assets was our sweet spot, and it still is. We call that signature wealth, and but we've added a couple offerings. One is called core wealth, and that's really designed for young professionals. What we found was that, like, there's a lot of great clients, young professionals that don't have $1 million yet, but they
Hmm.
need good advice. They're willing to pay, some money for that to get good, unbiased, independent advice. And so, that offering starts out at a $200 a month minimum fee, for those folks, and they may have 100, 200, 300,000 bucks to manage. Again, not 1 million, but they're savers and they want good advice. And so we designed that offering and kicked it out about 5 years ago. It's just taken off.
Oh, nice.
It's really just been a nice addition to kind of our offerings. And then, the opposite end of that is what we call select wealth, and that's for, more geared towards taxable estates, which 20 million and up, um, 10 million of investment assets and up, most likely. And so that's where, Ashley Verger, who's our attorney, CFP, um, kind of lands, more complex estates, um, in issues, usually multi-generational planning, family meetings, those kinds of things. We don't say family office around here because our director of wealth management, Matt Abels, doesn't like that term. And so we don't say family office, but it's pretty similar to what people are calling
Okay.
family office. But I really sit in that signature wealth, wealth management space, now more like in that $2 to $10 million investment asset for clients. And again, it's still a lot of money and a lot of issues, a lot of things to make sure are taken care of for them. And um, but I think when you ask, like, well, okay, well, what's a client look like? I think it's someone that's interested in actually getting help from a trusted, well-established firm. They're probably a delegator, but they're still engaged.
Sure.
They like to be informed, but they just don't want to do this stuff anymore themselves. They want someone to help them, and that tends to be, I think, our best relationships.
Yeah, that makes sense. As you were talking through that, I'm thinking of some of the meetings I've had where it's tough enough to get the husband and wife on the same page. Now you're talking about bringing a family in and the different family dynamics. I bet some of those meetings can be a little bit challenging.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's interesting, and I think, getting people on the same page. A lot of it is just making sure they're communicating well. I think when you look at, like, our parents or grandparents, a lot of times talking about financial issues or money issues was almost taboo, right? Like,
Right.
people didn't talk about it years ago. And so we're trying to get them to at least communicate like the basics to the next generation of like, hey, here's our desires for what we're going to do with any money that's left over, so that, you know, people don't assume something that's not accurate and not
Right.
happening. That's where we found, feelings get hurt and families get really broken up, is if, someone in the family was assuming something that wasn't true.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, best to get all the facts on the table, whether they're pleasant or not, but at least to address them beforehand.
that's right. Yep, absolutely.
It makes sense. So maybe you've kind of covered some of this already, but if you were to articulate what makes the firm unique, what kind of jumps to the mind? It sounds like you have a model that can serve a lot of people. Um, there's certainly some unique things about the skill and the designations that the advisors have, but does anything else jump to mind that you haven't already shared?
Oh gosh, I think, Lauren, that when I compare us, or I look at us and I look at other firms out there, and there's some really great ones, and some really great people in our industry. So, I don't want this to come across as arrogant in any way, but yeah, I really feel like, and I give a lot of credit to Jerry Foster, our founder, Mark Statlander, who was our CEO for 20 years. um, they established a culture of, hey, if we take really great care of our people at Foster Group, and we hire the right people, they're going to take care of our clients.
Mhm.
And so, but it starts with hiring the right people and taking really good care of them. And so we spent a lot of time on culture and communication, and really just, you know a important feedback loop, where we're constantly talking about, hey, how can we make things better? Somebody screwed up, or something happened that wasn't ideal. Like, hey, okay, let's figure it out. Let's
Yeah,
and so that, instead of a blame culture, which I think all of us have probably been a part of at some point in our
sure.
our careers or lives, where you just get taken out behind the woodshed almost, and get your lashes, to now, like, hey, let's figure it out. Like, we're just trying to help clients, and encourage each other. And I think that's, problem solving and dealing with conflict. I just don't see other firms doing that
Yeah.
as well as we do that here. And that, I think, then kind of relates to taking care of clients and dealing with issues that come up. And we got great people, like a lot of folks do. We got smart people that care. We have a good model. We've been doing it for 35 years now.
Right.
I think that just time in the business, and seeing all the things that could happen, and we've taken a lot of at bats, and have a lot of great experience. And fortunately, it's been a good model, and been successful.
Yeah, you probably don't have a whole lot of new scenarios that you've never, there's different variations, of course, but when a client comes in with an issue, you've probably seen it hundreds of times already.
Mostly, I'd say most things. You do get,
Yeah,
you probably laugh too, because once in a while you do get surprised with, like, oh, this is actually, had a couple this year where it's like, oh, I haven't actually seen this before. So,
sure.
um, but
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of the same issues, just different faces.
What you were describing culture wise almost sounds exact opposite, on the other end of the spectrum of the broker dealer world, where you see maybe more of the blame game, the advisors jumping ship every 3 years to get a better payout or stuff like that. And some of that I think is just maybe descriptive of the advisory world versus the broker dealer world potentially.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
I was just gonna say there that, I think, we're not an eat what you kill culture here, meaning, like, you know that we bring somebody in, and it's like, that's your client, you get paid for that. You know you get some big incentive or bonus for bringing them in or some big payout. We're salaried employees here, and have a career track, and I think it's when a client joins us, they're a client of the firm, and so
Right.
we're going to get the right people in the room, and I think that's we celebrate those wins together, and we mourn some of the losses together, and I think that is pretty different.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see how that creates the right culture. And it brings me back to another memory of, it's, gosh, 18 years back now when I first got into this industry of morning meetings of putting your numbers up on the board of how you did, and
Yeah.
totally opposite end of the spectrum, very competitive
Yep.
situation. But a little bit of the feedback that I've gotten from when I had conversations with other advisors was some of the listeners were wanting me to ask two additional questions. So I'll fire those your way.
Okay.
Just to explain a little bit kind of high level of the firm's investment philosophy and then fee structure. Would you be able to touch on both of those briefly?
Sure, you bet. And of course, it's on our ADV that's fully disclosed out there through the SEC site. But I think our investment philosophy, which I think used to be really pretty unique, a lot of folks have now adopted, and that's essentially a low cost, broad market approach to investing using, you know, fund families like Vanguard, DFA, you know, BlackRock, Baird, iShares, that, just really good low cost fund families that are very healthy and provide a lot of different tools for diversification that you can build portfolios for. So, we're definitely not a chase return or buy individual securities firm. We think, hey, there's a place for that for some people. They want to go for some of those more home runs and individual company risk. Just not what we do for our clients' monies. We tend to attract the ones that, hey, we want some growth, but we want to protect assets and just get a good solid return. So that philosophy, I think, is been ours for since the beginning, and I think for a lot of firms is probably pretty similar these days. But
Yeah.
in terms of our how we charge, um, so we are now, I think it's 1% first 2 million, and then 0.8 for the next 3 million after that, and then zero point 0.6. So it, drops off the more assets we have. And we did a benchmarking study last year, and we took our kind of the I'd say use the term kind of full service premium wealth management firms. Um, and we could talk about kind of what that means to us or to the industry, but we kind of took that custom benchmark of all those firms that are doing all the things that we're doing for clients, and we went 5% below the benchmark. And
Mm.
so we wanted to be competitive. We didn't want to be the cheapest. We don't want to be the most expensive either. We kind of just we want to be in there where it's fair for both sides. And
Right.
fortunately, it's been really well received by our clients that are out there looking at similar firms with similar offerings.
Right. Yeah, I think the fee conversation sometimes can get a little muddied. I think the biggest thing there is it's not necessarily how big or small the fee is. It's are you receiving value in exchange for that?
Yep.
And I think years ago, the industry thought there would be this big shift to these robo advisors, and it really just didn't happen. And I think
Yep.
it was because people maybe realized that just because it was lower cost didn't mean it was any better, and you might be giving up a lot of value and valuable services for that fee too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's, again, like we talked about earlier, there's different models that fit different people, and there's some people that are going to be really comfortable with going to Vanguard or Schwab and getting the basic investment advice and maybe some basic planning advice, and they're willing to pay that, whatever it is. Maybe it's 30 basis points, 0.3%.
Sure.
And that's a really good fit for them. There's going to be some folks that are going to really gravitate towards your model, where it's, hey, this is a flat fee, it's a subscription per month. No matter if you have 1 million or 10 million, it's going to be, essentially the same. And that's going to really fit what they need. And then, there's going to be some folks that do it themselves. They're
Right.
like, hey, I want to do the research. I like this stuff. I'm comfortable with taking on that risk myself. And, that's going to work for them. And then, our clients tend to be the delegators that they want, full kind of premium services. And, it's almost like they want a dedicated personal trainer to show up at the
Right.
house and push them through their workouts and make sure every rep is done right. That's kind of how I've described it in the past of, what our clients typically look for.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Everybody knows, you're supposed to eat right and work out right. And
Yeah.
just saying that doesn't mean, yeah, sometimes people need the extra hand holding. This might be a really hard question to answer because it's a little broad, but with all the experience you've accumulated over the years, does anything stand out the most if someone asked, "What have you learned as a financial advisor?" Or maybe put differently, if talking with your daughter, for example, what advice would, if you had to do it all over again, what advice would you give yourself, 30 or so years ago?
Yeah, I think where fortunately I had really good mentors that helped me learn this, knocked me over the head a lot of times to
Sure.
get there. Again, Jerry Foster and a few others. But the art of really listening and asking good questions to get clients to share what they're thinking about, what they're fearful about, what's important to them. I think mostly as advisors, we like to tell the client like what we're thinking and
Mm,
how good we are and how we want to do things, and here's this and here's that and here's this chart and here's that. And I think there's a place for all that stuff, right? I think there's times where we need to lead, and share information and share data and to get to different decision
right.
points, right? So I don't want to minimize that. Like there's definitely, but the true magic, I think, to our what we get to do is really understanding and knowing the client and what's important to them, and then making sure they know that we know that. And you can only do that if you ask good questions and then you shut up and you listen to what they're saying,
Right.
and then asking more good questions. And so that to me is the magic. That's the part that I think we could do way better as an industry. We're sure trying to do that here and teach that here. And so, it's one thing I wish I would have learned earlier in my
Hmm.
career, but thankful that I became a little more self-aware and started to figure it out.
One of the things that's funny about that, though, is that I think back over my career is that I kind of got thrown right into the fire right out of the gate. So I was having some client meetings when I shouldn't have been because I didn't know what I was talking about. But right out of the
Yeah.
gate, I didn't know enough to even be the person talking. So all I could do was ask a bunch of questions. And then you kind of go through that you of, okay, then I got dangerous and I learned a whole bunch. And then you make the mistake of wanting to tell the person how much you know.
Yeah,
And then eventually, hopefully, you get to the other end of that spectrum where you have the knowledge, but you know that it's not your job just to, share everything you know either. And you still need to get back to asking the right questions.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
funny because I think, sounds like my first year was similar to your first year or two, in that, it was with another organization. And I think I studied for 2 weeks, took my test, couple tests, um, and was given advice like 3 weeks later, to my
Right.
friends and family. And, there was just some things that were going on that I was like a little uncomfortable with. And that's when I met Jerry Foster, and I'm like, hey, like, what do you think of a couple of these things? And, one was how we got paid, in the other world, and, how do we give advice? And so it was really eye-opening to hear that there was a whole different world out there of how to do it. And, fortunately, he had an opening or created one, and
Sure.
I jumped into it. So.
Jerry was a little bit cutting edge back then too. I don't know if you would have found much trying to search for fee only advisors back then. You might have come up empty with a search um, for
No,
that.
I think you're exactly right. I mean, I hardly knew what it meant. And, back then, 28 years ago. But, I think fortunately, it's becoming more common, and again, more ways that clients can be served in this more of a fiduciary arrangement, right? The fee only or fee for service
Mhm.
arrangement. And, I think there's still a lot of good growing we can do as an industry. There's a whole bunch more people we can serve. And, um, I'm as excited about the future for our industry as I've been, because I think we got really bright people coming into the industry. And, when I see some of the young folks that are coming into Foster Group, it makes me happy. It makes me smile. And they're smart. They work hard. They're hungry. They got great hearts and want to serve people. And so that makes me happy. Yeah.
Right, for sure. Well, as we kind of begin to wrap up here, one of the questions I always like to ask, and don't feel bad if nothing's on the top of your mind, but are there any beliefs that you have that you would say run very against the grain, whether it's about investing or the industry in general? Does anything come to the top of your mind if they said, "Hey, do you have any strongly held beliefs that maybe would be against the grain or against the current for most people?"
Um, I think there's still a lot of marketing going on out there by folks that I really don't see are in the best interests of clients. I would love for that to change somehow. It's still our industry is still very much a sales industry in a lot of
Sure.
ways. And so I'd love for that to continue to evolve to more of an education and advice industry. And I think the other thing when I'm thinking about stuff is, I think also how professionals in our industry get paid is also going to continue to evolve. You
Right.
and I talked a little bit about briefly before the call, just about how it has changed. And we thought it was going one way and it kind of went the other way. And I think there's going to be more, things with AI and with, you know, different systems and processes and technology. Like it's going to continue to evolve. And but I think what our industry has that it'll be hard to make into a AI or a process is when things get, stressful. It's like you still want somebody in front of you talking and reassuring you, right? And saying, hey, you're going to be okay. Here's why you're going to be okay. And here's some things we can do to maybe help alleviate some of that pressure and
Sure.
stress. And I think that humanness, that contact, that caring and compassion, competence, like that's still going to be something I think people are going to be looking to get a hold of.
Right. This is a
So,
little bit of a rabbit hole, maybe, but the uh, marketing that you were talking about and how a lot of that can be a little deceiving, salesy. I think part of the problem is that there's not any real regulation in our industry of what an advisor is. You
yeah.
could just hold your insurance license and people are calling themselves an advisor. And from the outside
True.
looking in, it can be challenging because sometimes you see advisor over here and advisor over there, and it's hard to distinguish between what's what.
Yep. Very true. And even I think it's sometimes hard for us as advisors to really, be able to say what is different. Um,
Yeah.
I think we can do a better job of explaining that, and being prepared to answer those questions, and or showing them, hey, this is what you get with this model. This is what you get with this model. This is what you get with our model. And so I think, that's a little bit on us too, that we need
Yeah.
to be able to do a good job of explaining that.
Well, for years and years and years, you guys were able to just differentiate just from being fee only fiduciary.
Yep.
That's changing a little bit now, fortunately for the better, but unfortunately, I bet it's still in the minority when it comes to advisory firms in general that are acting as, the terminology I wish that could be adopted would be something like fiduciary only or fiduciary always, because I see a lot of firms advertise as fiduciary and then they still have their broker dealer. They still have these other kind of conflicting relationships where um, sometimes that's pretty challenging too to even explain that to someone.
Yeah. No, I hope that evolves too, Lauren. I think, one of my questions that I'll tell potential clients or that ask them, it's like, ask your advisor if they are always a fiduciary,
Yeah,
or if they have any conflicts that keep them from being a fiduciary, so that if they do, that you understand them.
right,
And there may be some legitimate ones that it's like, hey, yeah, this is a conflict. This is where I wouldn't be acting as a fiduciary. But
right.
um, yeah.
Well, we've covered quite a bit here. Is there anything that you wanted to share that we hadn't touched on yet?
No, I just appreciate, Lauren, the opportunity to get to know you a little better. And, sounds like your practice is growing and serving a great part of the niche out there. And so it's fun to just hear about other people doing it well. And we may get chances to refer business your way and vice versa when we
Yeah,
see a client that's a better fit. And that's one thing we've been committed to, is if they're not a great fit for us, we're going to get them to some other person that we trust. So I'm
right.
I'm grateful that we got that chance to get to know each other a little better.
I know we've seen each other probably over the years at different, FPA conferences and stuff like that. But I haven't been to those as much for a while. I feel like COVID put a little pause on them, and then I never quite got back into the routine of going to all of those. I don't know if you are very often anymore.
I try to make them next week. There's an
Yeah, there's
opportunity, I think.
a luncheon or something.
Yep.
Okay, I'll have to check that out again. I think I know I get the emails still, so I'll have to check those out and maybe get back in the routine because I do enjoy obviously having these conversations with other advisors and learning about what they do. And you always pick up an idea here or there that, oh, I could put that, kind of implement that into my practice here too. So um,
Yeah, for sure.
where can people find you if a lot of this message is resonating with people, if they're potentially looking to hire your firm for investment management, financial planning? Where's a good spot to find you guys?
Yeah, a couple easy ways. Fostergrp.com is our website. And then my email, reedr@fostergrp.com. So REEDR at fostergrp.com, or just some people still pick up the phone. It's less now, but 515-226-9000 is our phone number. And be glad to set up a time to have a conversation with anyone that's interested.
Well, we will put all of that in the show notes to reach out to you guys. And I like how you put the Reed R. You didn't put the onus on people to spell out your whole last name, so you simplified it a little bit for us there.
That's right. Yep, for sure.
Well, Reed, thank you for joining me. And like you said, I look forward to collaborating and continuing to share ideas over the years. But I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us and share a little bit about Foster Group.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Lauren.
All right. Hey, have a great rest of your day.
Yep, you too.
I hope you enjoyed our time with Reed today. And if you'd like to reach out to Reed directly, check out the show notes where I've linked how to connect. Before wrapping up, I want to say another big thank you to Reed for sharing some of his background and hobbies with us in part 1, and of course for today, for giving us a peek behind the curtain into his firm, Foster Group. Come back in 2 weeks where we will have a brand new topic for you. And of course, if you'd like to revisit any past episodes, visit integrityguidance.com and click on the podcast tab. See you again soon, and God bless.
Thank you so much for listening and supporting this podcast. If you've enjoyed listening, we would love if you took a quick moment to leave an honest review. Of course, we're shooting for 5 stars, but if you have suggestions to improve the show, we would love to hear from you too. Just click on the podcast name, Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise Retirement Podcast, and scroll down to ratings and review. Thanks again for your support, as this helps us reach a wider audience and help even more retirees just like you. This podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only and is not intended as a specific tax, legal, or investment advice. Lauren Sherman is a certified financial planner and co-owner of Integrity Wealth Management, an investment advisor serving retirees in search of their own healthy, wealthy, and wise retirement lifestyle.